All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Mack Bolen, and I'm here with Rob Sherrill and our latest edition of Illinois Wrestling. And, of course, as the regular season wraps up, we're getting ready to head into the postseason. So to start off, just kind of a quick recap. We had some conference tournaments, some other tournaments, some competitions going on. But basically last weekend, the big winner was Mother Nature.
Yeah, well, all of a sudden, weather-wise, we just can't catch a break, right? We've had two weekend storms in a row, and now what happened was some more downstate tournaments did get canceled. Leroy was canceled. Rochester was canceled, and the Orion tournament and, of course, the Oak Park River Forest tournament did go on, but with drastically reduced fields.
Oh, very drastically reduced.
And pretty much anybody, with the McHenry area getting over 10 inches of snow, there were a lot of teams coming from that part of the state down. We're supposed to come down to your place on Saturday morning, and of course they just couldn't get out. Apparently, I'm guessing Arrowhead must have come in Friday night to be able to be there.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. I didn't. I was really wondering if Christian Brothers was going to show up. I mean, they didn't bring a full team, but they did show up.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing some teams must have come in on Friday and beat the weather in to be, for teams that traveled that long a distance to be there and to be wrestling.
So did any tournaments in the 1A go on? Did they?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, they did. Okay. Now, of course, some of these results that we're talking about, of course, since many of them are conference tournaments, are going to go across classification lines. But the Orion tournament did go on with 8 teams.
Okay.
The teams that were to go from Central Illinois were unable to make it. Clinton could not make it up. Gibson City could not make it up. So the teams that were from the area were able to get in, and Orion won that tournament pretty easily, with Camp Point Central finishing second and Sherrard finishing third. And Aurora Christian won the Metro Suburban Conference tournament over Riverside Brookfield and Fenton, which finished third. And that's the primary action that went on Saturday in 1A. There were some events that finished up on Monday, on Martin Luther King Day, as planned. The Illini Central Conference duels finished up on that day, with Prairie Central and Monticello both going 5-0, and Tolono Unity, which was the host school, going 3-1 with their only loss to Prairie Central. So they were able to get that particular event done, and that was the prime. And they're not a 1A team, but this was mostly a 1A field. The Interstate 8 tournament also was made up on Monday, and Coal City set a tournament record with 286 points.
Wow!
All 14 of their wrestlers finished in the top 3, with 11 in the finals. So they only and 7 champs. So they only lost 7 matches all day.
That's pretty impressive.
Real dominant performance by them.
So then in 2A, well, Coal City's 2A, but 2A straight across, did we have any conference meets there?
We had, we had the Mid-Illini tournament, which did go on with, even though the weather was bad there, all the teams were from the area, so they didn't have far to travel. And Washington, as expected, won that pretty easily. And also Oak Forest, after losing to Lamont in a duel earlier in the season, managed to win the South Suburban tournament, pretty much a 2-team race over Lamont. with Shepherd finishing third there. The Northern Illinois Big 12 tournament was postponed. That's going to be made up on Saturday at DeKalb. And when we have when we talk about the schedule, we'll talk about some of the other things that are going on in the final weekend of the regular season.
Sure. Now, and of course, Saturday in 3A, as you already mentioned, the Oak Park tournament, which isn't a conference tournament, and just so everybody knows, not all conferences have a conference tournament. A lot of conferences decide their champion by regular season dual meets.
Right, and both divisions, of course, of the West Suburban Conference, they've never had a conference tournament. Nope. They always want to save that fourth tournament date for teams that they don't see. So both the gold and the silver probably, as long as they've been in existence, have used their dual meet schedule to determine the division champions.
Yep. And now the Oak Park tournament was, I think, a grand total of 6 teams, of which one was the Oak Park JV, and it was such a small field that they actually didn't even use brackets. They went to a pool format, and every weight wrestled a round robin.
Right. Yeah, and I should have mentioned that Dakota did make it down to the tournament. They finished third in that. So, or I guess actually finished fourth behind CBC and Arrowhead. So, but yeah, they were able to make able to make it. I mean, perhaps maybe the interstates were passable.
Yeah, it was
because they would that the interstate was how they would come from the other end of Rockford.
Yeah, but it was like we all know now, it was the weather was brutal that weekend, and now if I remember, Mid-Suburban League, I believe Barrington won that one.
Yes, they did. Yes, Barrington won over with Conant finishing second. Prospect and Schaumburg very close for third place. It was basically a 4-team race there, and so it wound up being a good event. And of course, let's see, as far as the Chicago Public Schools did finish with Taft winning easily, back of the yards, which we've mentioned a couple of times on this show, finished second in that. They have a really good shot at winning the regional and advancing to the sectional down there on the southwest side. And Phoenix Military Academy came in third, so good for them. The Lake County tournament was made up on Monday with Warren going 6 for 6 in the finals.
Yeah, I saw that.
Edging out Libertyville. And Stevenson for the team title there. Warren only placed 11, and Libertyville and Stevenson both placed all 14.
Right, but six champs.
And the big piece of news coming out of that tournament was the state place winner who had missed the entire season, Joel Vanderveer from Warren. Made his first appearance of the season and was dominant at winning at 126. He was third in the state last year, and he tore his ACL in June during the freestyle season last year. And so, of course, he spent the entire rest of the summer and the entire fall and most of the season rehabbing and trying to get himself as close to 100% as possible. I was Vic Torrey said that's a huge knee brace he's got on, but he was dominant anyway. He had a fall and a major decision in the finals. So we'll see how he handles the regional and the sectional and the state. Maybe another couple of weeks of rehab and drilling and working out will get some more of the rust off for him.
And Sandberg won the, it's renamed now. There's no Southwest Suburban, I guess, anymore, championship.
Right. Yeah, because there are other schools in it. They won it over Lockport and Lincoln Way West, finished 2 and 3 there. West Aurora was a big winner in the Upstate 8 tournament over with Glenbard East edging out Bartlett for second place. And Maine South edged Deerfield by 2.5 points to win the Central Suburban League with Evanston finishing third.
Yeah, and just a note for people who don't know this already, next year, from what I heard, Deerfield will be moving down to Class 2A.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, as things stand right now, they're going to be a 2A school. Of course, I'm sure they will continue to wrestle the same kind of schedule they're wrestling now, which is, of course, absolutely brutal.
Yep.
And it will of course prepare them for the rigors of 2A, which they'll be in next year.
Yep.
So
and of course, the big one, we haven't talked about the Chicago Catholic League Championship yet, which of course is the biggie. You know, we had several nationally ranked teams, and the usual subjects, of course, were in the mix for first, second, and third. And of course, we ended up with a tie.
Yeah, and of course, it wasn't a tie originally. You know, they originally published, which I still have in my possession,
right,
a set of team scores that shows Mount Carmel winning by a point. But of course, at some point after the tournament concluded, when they reviewed the team scores, it turned out that a team point for unsportsmanlike conduct that had been should have been deducted from Mount Carmel was deducted from St. Rita's team score instead.
Accidentally.
When they discovered the error, it turned out that we had co-champions with Mount Carmel and Montini, both scoring 276.5 points. So both of them got they'll make up another first place trophy for whoever didn't take it home on Saturday.
And then Marmion Academy,
very close third with 270.
270, right. So very good job. And I think, if I remember correctly, Pete Christensen was the outstanding wrestler.
Yeah, Pete Christensen actually was the Tony Lawless Award
winner. Okay.
And Brad Gross was the outstanding wrestler,
right.
And Alex Sertzis was the Tony Lawless Award winner among coaches. So also a well-deserved award for him. Although I have to say that certainly Gross and Christensen are both outstanding kids. I certainly don't think that either 160 or 195 were weight classes to write home about in terms of how strong they were.
Yeah.
And so I sort of rectified that by naming Dominic Murphy of Brother Rice, who I thought won the toughest weight class at 170 as my number one star of the week. So congratulations to him.
Well, and of course we had the I don't know how many times these guys have met, but at 145, the again matchup of Trevor Chumbley and Fidel Mayora.
It's just the second time this year.
But last year,
but you remember we had the ongoing series between Stiles and Coleman last year, where they wound up wrestling each other 6 times, and each guy won 3 of them.
Yeah, but last year they at 138 it was Chumbley and Mayora again in the state finals.
Right, and
quite possibly we could see it again at 145 this year.
Probably gonna happen again, a weight class up. So yeah, they've so Chumbley's won 2 close ones now, and we'll see. Looks like they'll meet again at the sectional the next time, and we'll see what happens in match number 3 at Bolingbrook.
All right. Now, I'm trying to recall this. I don't have the stats in front of me. I believe Montini had 5 individual champions, and I think Mount Carmel might have had close to the same,
That's
if
a
not the
sound.
same.
That sounds about right. I
Yeah.
didn't add them up, but Mount Carmel obviously got enough points out of
Yep.
those upper weight guys to make because they had a few disappointments down low.
Sure.
106 being an example of that, but certainly, but yeah, they were able to score at enough weight classes to take a share of the title.
Yeah, and I mean, Sotelo from Army and Academy obviously was the clear favorite at 106, and has been, I believe, ranked number 1 almost all season at 1.
Yes, I've had him.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's been
I've had him number one.
106. Yeah,
from the very beginning,
yeah,
and
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
well into my national rankings as well.
yeah. And he's the returning runner-up from state last year at 106, so he's definitely a clear favorite going on forward to the state tournament. Of course, we got regionals coming up here soon, so if you want to, let's go ahead and take a look.
Actually,
at regionals.
let's recap just a few things about what the last weekend of the regular season is going to look like tonight.
Okay.
And is really the last really big night of really good regular season action. One of the major meets going on tonight is at Coal City, where Washington and Joliet Catholic are coming in for a double duel. That'll be a big one.
That'll be a good one, yeah.
Could see number 1 change hands in 2A potentially. Sterling Newman hosting West Carroll, Rock Falls, and Stillman Valley for a quad tonight. LaSalle Peru is at Dixon out there in the Sauk Valley. Of course, the big rivalry match tonight between Providence and Providence and Mount Carmel taking place at Providence. Edwards Mills having their senior night tonight against Chatham Glenwood and East St. Louis. Mercer County hosts Geneseo, 1A against 2A there. Sterling is at Sycamore and 2 top 15 2A teams. Grayslake Central is at Grant tonight. And another great Western Big Six match out in the Quad Cities tonight with Rock Island Alleman at Moline, 2 ranked teams there. So some really nice action going on tonight, mostly downstate. Tomorrow night, another big neighborhood rivalry with Wilmington visiting Coal City. That takes place tomorrow night. Cahokia is at Belleville Althoff to start off the South 7 duels. A couple of 1A matches tomorrow night. Byron is at Erie, 2 top 12 teams there. Sherrard and Rockridge are at Princeton. And 2 tournaments taking place. Also the Big 12 duels, which were snowed out last weekend, are taking place tomorrow at Peoria, Notre Dame.
So that's a makeup then.
Yes, that's a makeup. 2 tournaments that are always regularly scheduled on Friday taking place tomorrow. The Midnight Rumble at Rockford Lutheran, and at the East Suburban Catholic tournament is tomorrow at St. Viator. And finally, Saturday, wrapping up the regular season, Andrew is at Sandburg. They always close the regular season against each other. Conference tournaments going on. The new Duquesne tournament is going on at Wheaton South. The Eastern Illinois tournament is downstate at Robinson. The Nick 10 is at Rockford East. Of course, we mentioned the makeup of the Northern Illinois Big 12. That's going to take place Saturday at DeKalb. The Heart of Illinois duels conclude at Leroy. They had their divisional duels on Tuesday night. The Mississippi Valley duels will be Saturday at Civic Memorial. The South 7 duels will conclude at Mount Vernon, and a couple of big 1A tournaments. The Litchfield tournament tomorrow night and Saturday. The big teams there are Lena Winslow Stockton and Orion. They always make that trip down. Vandalia comes up for that, and the tournament at Quincy Notre Dame. So that's your wrap up of the regular season.
That's our final regular season matches.
And once Saturday is over and done with, then we'll be prepping for the postseason.
Right, and there are going to be some very interesting regional matchups, and of course, in 1A, we've got that one regional that just makes us want to scream.
Yeah, well, there are a few like that.
Yeah,
two of them are up in the Byron sectional, with where the team tournament is being hosted by Sterling Newman. The big winner in that particular, in terms of a number of strong teams, is the West Carroll Regional, which has 6 of the current top 25 in it, headed by number 2 Lena Winslow Stockton,
right.
number 3 Dakota, number 5 Rock Falls, number 9 Byron, number 17 Sterling Newman, and number 22 West Carroll. And it's interesting that Lena Winslow Stockton has 10 wins in dual meets against the 1A top 25 this year. That's the most in classification of any team in Illinois in any of the 3 classes. But Dakota has 5 wins against the 1A top 25, plus a win against the number 1 team in 2A, Washington.
Washington, right.
Sterling Newman has 5 wins against the top 25, and Rock Falls has 3 wins against the top 25, but most likely none of those teams will go on to the dual team state series.
So with Lena Winslow, Stockton, and Dakota, in that regional setting with other really good teams there, is this going to be tight between those two?
It very well could be. I mean, you all those teams have individuals that are going to, that are going to pick off individuals from other teams. Byron has great upper weights. They could, they're going to have, they're going to have 3 or 4 champions out of those upper weights, and pick off some of the guys that that Lena Winslow has up there. Although, it's certainly possible that Kuhl against Ellsbury in a final could be for for who goes to the series. Although I don't think Byron has quite enough down low to contend for the title. But yeah, all these teams plus Oregon, which is honorable mention, also in that regional, going to be going to have guys in the finals and guys that are going to upset point getters that other teams are counting on.
Yeah,
it's going to be the case in all of these regionals where you have teams that are clustered. Another one that where you have a lot of clustering going on is Sherrard, which has Orion, number 7, Rock Island Alleman, number 11, Erie, number 12, and Sherrard, number 16. And it's interesting that the 2 lower-ranked teams, Erie and Sherrard, both have 6 wins in duels against the 1A top 25, whereas Orion and Alleman each only have 3. But Orion, from 126 through heavyweight, is really stacked, and so they're if they can if they can make up for not scoring many points at 106, 113, or 120, I think they're going to get through that regional okay.
And the rest of them?
The rest of them, sticking with Byron for a minute. Aurora Christian, of course, is pretty much all by themselves at the Aurora Central Catholic Regional, and there are no there are no ranked teams at the Genoa Kingston Regional. I think it'll be a very competitive team race, though, with I think Stillman Valley, Winnebago, and Genoa Kingston battling it out for the top spot there. So there's your look at the sectional in the upper northwest quadrant of the state, where you have 11 of the top 26 teams in 1A, because I have a tie for 25th.
Okay.
So moving on to the Porta sectional, which is where the dual team sectional will be at Hayworth. We have the same sort of situation at the Clinton region, where we have 4 top 25 teams, led by number 10 Auburn, number 14 Hayworth, number 20 Leroy Tri-Valley, and number 24 Petersburg Porta, which is hosting the duels. They're hosting the individual sectional. Auburn has 4 wins in dual meets against the top 25, as well as a win against a 2A top 25. Hayworth has 5 wins against the top 25. I think it's going to be a pretty good battle between those two for the regional title. Looking at the rest of that sectional. Moving over to Deer Creek, Mackinac, Tremont, which is number 8, should win that regional pretty easily. There are I have 2 honorable mention teams there who have both had up and down seasons. El Paso Gridley, which won that regional in a tiebreaker over Tremont last year, and Olympia. So. But I think Tremont, which is number 8 and has 3 wins against the top 25, will come out there. Knoxville, which would not have had any top 25 teams, except for the fact that Mercer County was moved out of the Northwest Illinois sectional and into the Porta sectional. They should win that regional without any problem. They're number 21. And they have 2 wins against the top 25. And going to be a good race at Macomb for that one. I think Camp Point Central, on the strength of their second place finish at Orion last week, is probably going to come out of there. So that's your look at the Portis individual sectional. Moving on to the Pontiac individual sectional, and that northeast quadrant is a little bit stronger this year than it was last year. That dual sectional is being held at Wilmington. Unfortunately, all 4 of the top 25 teams in this sectional are at the same regional,
of course,
Seneca, led by Prairie Central, which is number 13. Wilmington, number 18, and Seneca and Pontiac, which are tied for the 25th spot. Prairie Central has 9 wins against the 1A top 25. I expect Prairie Central to win it. They're stacked at the upper weights, and I think they'll have enough down low to prevail there. As far as the other 3 regionals are concerned, you have they're all from the Chicago area. the Walther Christian Regional. It'll be a very good race between Walther Christian and Lyle. I think Lyle will probably edge out Walther Christian to advance there, but that's going to be a very tight race. I think Lyle has 2 wins against the 1A top 25, and the CMA Bronzeville Regional. That's going to be a good team race, actually, between Hope Academy, which has been to the Elite Eight the last couple of years, and Phoenix Military Academy, which finished 3rd in the CPS tournament. I think both of those. I think those 2 schools are going to have a very good battle, and I think Piatone is going to come out of the Bolen Regional with Paul Keene, the defending state champ there, and a couple of upperweight guys who have looked good lately, Logan Hartnett and Nolan Bryant. So I think Piatone will come out of the Bowen Regional. But all 4 top 25 teams are in that Seneca Regional, and that will be a good one. Now, the last sectional, of course, is at Carterville, with Vandalia hosting the dual sectional. And the best team race will be at Carlisle, where we have both Vandalia and Belleville Althoff. Both those teams have have 5 top 25 wins, and Vandalia has beaten Althoff already in a duel this year. I expect Vandalia to come out of there. They've been getting better as the season went on, and Althoff doesn't have those surefire guns that they had last year. They have 2 or 3, but points are going to, at enough weights, are going to be hard to come by for them. Another good race going on at the Tolono Regional between Tolono and Monticello. Tolono, number 15, has 6 wins against the top 25. Monticello at number 23 has 5. And there are a couple of other teams that are honorable mention that have had very strong months of January. St. Joseph Ogden and Oakwood, and so that's going to be a pretty competitive regional. If Monticello wins it, I won't be terribly surprised, but I think Tolono Unity has enough to get through there. At the Robinson Regional, I think Mount Carmel will take that one pretty easily. They have 2 wins against the top 25 and 2 wins against the 2A top 25. Although I think Benton is going to give them a run in that regional, and Robinson is going to win some matches as well. And as far as the Anna Jonesboro Regional is concerned, Anna Jonesboro, I think, will win that pretty easily. I think Murfreesboro will probably be second place there. So there's your look at 1A.
All righty. So moving to 2A.
To 2A. We also have a little clustering going on in 2A, especially in the Antioch and Geneseo sectionals. At Antioch, we have 2 regionals that have 4 top 25 teams in them. The most notable of those being Harvard, which has both Marion Central and Crystal Lake Central in it, number 2 and number 4. Now, this is kind of an interesting dynamic with 2A because there's a lot of crossover wrestling in terms of classifications here. 11 of my top 25 in 2A don't have a single win against another 2A top 25 opponent because a lot of them are wrestling a lot of 1A.
Right.
A lot of them are wrestling a lot of 3A.
3A, sure.
So except if you except for the schools that are wrestling in a lot of Northern Illinois Big 12 competition, not a lot of that going on. But Marion Central does have 4 wins against the 2A top 25, and that is tied for the top spot in the 2A classification, along with Geneseo. Crystal Lake Central has 3 wins against the 2A top 25. Prairie Ridge and Crystal Lake South are also in that regional, so that one will be very competitive. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes between Marion Central and Crystal Lake Central. I think Prairie Ridge and Crystal Lake South both have enough individuals to have a say in the team race there. The other one is the Lakes Regional, where you have Lake Forest at number 9, probably going to win that, although Antioch at number 10 is going to have a say in it. And so is Grays Lake Central, which has probably the state champions at 170 and 182 in the Kramer brothers. And they had four champs in the Lake County tournament. So they may have enough individual points to really skew this team race. And Vernon Hills at number 19 is also in this regional. So 4 top 25 teams in the Lakes regional as well. The other sectionals at Ridgewood, Niles Notre Dame at number 23. Probably going to win that. Fenton is also in that regional. So we're probably not going to see what Notre Dame did last year when they set a state record with 14 regional champions. No school in any classification had ever done that. So with Fenton in the field, that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, yeah.
But I do expect Notre Dame to win it.
Okay.
And then at the Fenwick Regional, I think St. Patrick will probably come out of that over either Fenwick or Elmwood Park. So that's your look at the Antioch sectional. Moving on to the Geneseo sectional, where Sandwich is going to host the duels. The Dixon Regional has 5 top 25 teams, the most of any in the classification, with Dixon at number 8 being the highest ranked there. Geneseo at number 11, LaSalle Peru at number 12, Sterling at number 15, and Rock Island at number 22, also in that regional. So going to be interesting to see what happens there. Dixon is one of those teams that's going to score at a lot of weight classes. I don't know how many champs they'll have. I don't see them having a whole lot of finalists necessarily, but they're going to do a lot of scoring at a lot of weights. So probably Dixon will just sneak through. I think but any of those 5 teams on a hot day could win it. Of course, the Washington Regional, unfortunately, you're going to have Bloomington in there with Washington again. And so number 1 against number 7 with number 7. Metamora at number 19 is also in that regional. And they moved Lincoln up from what they used to be the Southern Illinois sectional. So it's interesting if Lincoln were to somehow win that regional, they would have trips to Geneseo for the individual sectional, and Sandwich for the team sectional. And somebody's going to be paying Lincoln a lot of mileage to make those trips.
But Washington obviously is a favorite,
right?
Yeah.
Rochelle Regional, we have 2 top 25 teams, Sycamore and Freeport. I think that's going to be a very interesting regional. Burlington Central, of course, has some individuals there, as well, and so does Rochelle. That's a regional that I think is not going to be decided until the finals. And the final regional out of there, Coal City is hosting it. They have Joliet Catholic in that regional, along with Ottawa and Sandwich, which have at times been in the top 25. They're not currently. Joliet Catholic does have a dual win over Coal City this year, so they'll be in the mix. So we'll see. But I think if Coal City is not completely having an off day, I think they win that easily. Mm-hmm. Moving on to the De La Salle sectional, and Oak Forest is hosting the team sectional there. Just two top 25 teams there, and unfortunately, they'll meet in the Tuesday night at Oak Forest in the sectional. Lamont, which is at the Hinsdale South Regional and should win that easily, and Oak Forest, which is at the Rich East Regional and should win that easily. It'd be interesting to see at Hinsdale South whether either Nazareth Academy or St. Lawrence can advance enough guys to make Lamont sweat. I don't think they will, but I think they'll finish a strong second and third there. And same at Rich East regarding Oak Forest with TF North. Obviously, the Bailey brothers are there. Right. They're going to win easily with bonus points, but they're really going to be the only competition to on a team basis to Oak Forest there. The other two regionals, of course, we've mentioned Back of the Yards. They are hosting a regional. We'll see if they can score enough points to overtake De La Salle, which is also in that regional. I think I think that's a possibility that they could. And at Solorio Academy, probably between them and Simeon and Evergreen Park for the team title there. So we will have Oak Forest and Lamont meeting on a Tuesday, and that'll be an interesting one at Oak Forest. That might be pack the place night for them. And then finally at the Mahomet sectional, the dual team sectional will be at Taylorville there. Two top 25 teams in that sectional. Number 24, Rochester. Not a sure thing, but they should win the Chatham-Glenwood Regional. Of course, Chatham will have something to say about it. Mount Zion has been coming on recently. They just beat Mahomet Seymour in a duel on Tuesday. So Mount Zion is going to be going to very much be a factor there. Jacksonville advanced some people. I think that's going to be a regional that goes down to the end between Rochester, Chatham-Glenwood, and Mount Zion. And the other regional with a top 25 team in it, which I think also will go down to the end, is Olney, Richland County, number 25 there at Carbondale. Between Matt Toon is going to give them a run along with Marion. That'll be a good three-team race there. I think Olney will score enough points, probably at enough weight classes to prevail. But Matt Toon is going to give them a heck of a run, and Marion has some guys that are going to score. So we'll see what happens there. At the Urbana Regional, Mahomet Seymour probably will win that, although they've kind of been on the slide this month of January. I think their strongest competition in that regional probably will come from Centennial, but I think Mahomet prevails there. and I think Troy Triad prevails at Jerseyville. They'll get a little bit of a run from Cahokia and maybe from Mascoutah as well. But Triad was my last team out in the top 25, so I think they will have enough to win that. So there's your look at 2A.
So 3A.
That leaves the big enchilada. And let's go ahead and start off with in terms of top 25 teams, we're pretty well spread out here. Mm-hmm. I do have 26 teams in my top 25 since I have a tie for 25th. And it's a 7-7-6-6 split between sectionals in terms of ranked teams. So you don't have the clustering that you have in the other two classifications. The only regional that has as many as 4 ranked teams is at Libertyville. So we'll start with the Barrington sectional, and that is, and McHenry is hosting the dual sectional there. Libertyville at number 15, Warren, which is one of the newest teams into the top 25 at 17, Grant at number 19, and Deerfield at number 20 are all in that regional. So it's going to be a 4-team race there. Libertyville has 4 wins against the 3A top 25, but we saw what Warren did at the Lake County tournament. So they're going to now that they have Vanderveer back, they're going to contend for that regional for sure. Even though, at least according to my information, have only one top 25 win, and they just got that against Stevenson a week or so ago.
When on top of that, Deerfield's got some pretty decent individuals.
Yeah, they do
within that lineup.
So at Dundee Crown, Barrington is I think will win that one. Barrington has 7 wins against the 3A top 25, which is one of the highest totals in 3A. And Stevenson at number 18, which has 3 top 25 wins, is also in that regional. So as is Jacobs, which is going to be dangerous. So, but I think Barrington will score enough points to come through that one. The Huntley should win Rockford East pretty easily. At number 11, they are the only ranked team there. Harlan is honorable mention. They do have 1 top 25 win. Huntley has 3. No top 25 teams at Friend, but Prospect had a real nice run at the mid-suburban, and I think Prospect will win that regional pretty easily. So that's your look at Barrington with 4 top 25 teams at Libertyville. So that's going to be a very, very competitive one. Probably will not be decided before the finals. Moving on to Bolingbrook, which is where most of the power is, at least at the top. There are 7 top 25 teams there. Montini is in the Argo Regional at number 1. They do have 6 wins against the 3A top 25, which may be more than you'd expect for a team that wrestles the frequency of national competition that they do. But they do have 6 wins against the top 25. Downers Grove South, which just entered my top 25 after beating Plainfield South last Saturday and knocking them out of the top 25 temporarily, is also in that regional. Downers Grove South is the only top 25 team that doesn't have a top 25 win, but they got there by knocking off a previously top 25 team in Plainfield South. Mount Carmel is at the Revis Regional along with St. Rita. So number 3 and number 24 there. Mount Carmel has 4 wins against the 3A top 25. St. Rita has 1. You would think that Mount Carmel would win that pretty easily.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the interesting thing here is that you have the 2-team race at Marmion between the host school and Naperville Central. Marmion is number 4. Naperville Central has dropped to number 13, but Naperville Central, it's amazing. They have 7 wins against the 3A top 25 and yet may not make the series. Marmion has 4 wins against the 3A top 25, but this is the kind of thing that kind of screams that, we have a flawed system that needs to be replaced with something else.
Now, and I don't know, a little bit of insider information. I saw a post, and I don't know who or how much, but there may be some people from Marmion Academy missing from that lineup, and I'm talking about potential state placers. The post didn't go into any detail, but it was from a good source. I'm not going to name his name, but right. I don't know, but that could have a huge impact.
Sure.
And even if they
but even if it does,
yeah,
there's no doubt that Naperville Central, with their resume, nobody is going to say they don't belong if they should happen to win that regional. So they are a worthy replacement, shall we say, if Marmion is not at full strength.
Yeah, and Naperville Central, quietly again, not one of the power programs we would say, but actually put together a very, very good season this year.
This is absolutely the best season in their history, and I don't think anybody is going to deny that a team with 7 top 25 wins would not belong in the state series. If anything, I would say it would get them a very high seed in the state series.
Absolutely. If we had a seeded state series.
If we had a system that made any sense.
If it did.
But again, this is Illinois. So,
yeah.
and of course, at the TF South Regional, Sandburg should win that pretty easily. Of course, Marist is there. Marist, I think will certainly give them a run for a while. Sandburg has 4 wins against the top 25. And so we could see the same 4 teams that we've seen for the last 2 years in that sectional.
Yep.
And so we'll see how it goes. Moving on to the Conant sectional, which, as we've discussed before, has a little bit of a different flavor this year than it's had in the past years. Of course, DeKalb is no longer going northwest; they're going suburban northwest.
They're going suburban northwest,
and DeKalb is going to be at the South Elgin Regional, and they are, of course, they're ranked number 6. And also in their regional is Conant at number 27, number 22. DeKalb has 8 wins against the 3A top 25, and that's the most of any school in the 3A classification. Actually, it's tied for the most. Glenbard North also has 8 top 25 wins.
And another thing that would be interesting,
DeKalb should advance through the South Elgin region.
Absolutely. And an interesting thing to point out is DeKalb, through a lot of this season, has been short a lot of guys. I mean, they lost Fabian Lopez, they lost Curran, but at 100%, we saw what they did to Huntley. And I'm going to say that's a dangerous team going forward in a dual league format. Absolutely. That is a dangerous team.
So anyway, there are 6 top 25 teams in this sectional. Moving on to the Lane Tech Regional, which is where Oak Park River Forest is. Also Addison Trail, the other top 25 team there. Oak Park has 3 wins against the 3A top 25, but of course, lots of wins against quality national competition. So they obviously should advance through there. Now, the regional that, of course, is going to go down to the finals is the one at Glenbard North, between Glenbard North and St. Charles East.
Yep.
And of course, St. Charles East, as we've mentioned before, owns a dual meet win over Glenbard North this year.
Yes, they do.
And you have a couple of teams that could give one or the other some help there in Wheaton North and in Glenbard East that are going to have some individuals. St. Charles East has 4 wins against the top 25. Glenbard North, as we've mentioned, 8 wins against the top 25, and that's with, of course, a significant part of their schedule being wrestled out of state.
Correct, and a big win over Sandburg.
Right. They've split with Sandburg this year. And then the other regional in that sectional at Maine East, probably between that'll be a good race between Maine South, Evanston, and Taft. And one of those 3 teams is going to come out there. So there's your look at Conant with, of course, DeKalb will be hosting the dual sectional there. And finally, at Joliet Central hosting the individual sectional. And of course, who hosts the duals on Tuesday, those will be at sites that are already hosting 2A or 1A sectionals, depending on where teams come out there. But there are also 6 top 25 teams here. The team with the regional with the most is at Bradley, where we have 3 top 25 teams led by Lincoln Way West at number 8. Also Manuka at 14 and Moline at 23. And it's kind of interesting how whoever it was at the IHSA office decided to drive Moline and East Moline past Plainfield and Andrew all the way to Bradley. That's a very interesting choice of assignment that I would like to ask somebody how in the world they came up with
it.
That.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Wow, so much for the rubber band theory.
Yeah.
But anyway, Lincoln Way West does have 6 wins against the 3A top 25 this year. And it's interesting to note that last year they had 10 wins against the 3A top 25 and didn't even make the field because they only finished 3rd in their regional. And if somebody could explain to me, a team with 10 top 25 wins should not be in the field, I'd like to hear it.
Yep. And there in Lincoln Way West is kind of like we spoke earlier, just real quick. Lincoln Way West is kind of in that group where we had about 3 or 4 schools that all have wins against each other, and they're that tight. And every single one of them deserves to be in the dual team tournament series.
Sure. Manuka has 4 wins against the top 25, and Moline has 1. Mm-hmm. So, it'll be a good battle between those 3 teams for sure. And Bradley has some individuals that are going to make a difference, and so do Pekin and Normal Community. So that's going to be a very, very interesting race. At the Andrew Regional, Lockport should win that fairly easily. Providence is in that regional as well, along with Lincoln Way East. And of course, Marian Catholic with their individuals is going to have a say against somebody. Lockport has 5 wins against the top 25. They're the only ranked team here, but of course, we thought that it would be a close one last year, but they came.
Yeah.
But Lockport with a great semifinal round last year wound up winning that going away.
Now, do you currently have is Molton still out, or is he back yet?
You mean Ramos?
Ramos, I mean, sorry, yeah, Ramos, not Molton. Ramos.
They expect him back for the regional.
Okay, good.
They expect him back for the regional. They, of course, if they had wrestled this past weekend, of course, he did not wrestle at the Southwest Suburban. And if they'd had any matches this weekend, he would not have wrestled either. But they do expect him back for the regionals.
Good.
We'll see we'll see whether he's able to get through the whole day or not. It probably doesn't matter with him. At the Granite City Regional, Edwardsville will win that easily.
Yeah.
Belleville West has individuals, but that's going to be a walkover for Edwardsville, ranked number 12 there.
And having a great season.
And probably the stealth regional as far as 5 or 6 teams possibly having a shot here is at Plainfield North. Oswego is the only top 25 team here, but I don't necessarily make Oswego the favorite. It's going to be, I think, between Plainfield South and Plainfield East for the title here. Oswego will be in the mix. They'll have a lot of guys score, but Plainfield South has been a great tournament team this year. And boy, you want to talk about a team that's had an up and down season, great wins, really bad losses. It's Plainfield East, and they're going to be in the top 3. I don't think there's any question. And Nequa Valley could put it all together on a good day. Yorkville could put it all together on a good day. So when you look at Nequa Valley, Oswego, Plainfield East, Plainfield South, and Yorkville, all 5 of those teams, I'm going to say, could be within 20 or 25 points of each other for the title there. So even though Oswego has earned the spot in the top 25 based on how well they've done in dual meets, tournament situation, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
It's a coin flip between those teams. So because Oswego in duels has beaten them all, but in a tournament, it's a complete crapshoot. So there you go. There's your look at 3A, and boy, it's going to be fun.
It is. And we'll skip over next week, but then of course after regionals, we will come back and we'll do a sectional preview. And then we'll probably talk more individuals at that point, particularly weight classes and particularly tough weight classes at the sectionals after the regionals.
Oh, and yeah, we'll have all the big matchups for you for sure.
And as we know, because of the way they do the non-seeded sectionals from the P draw, even with the individual matchups, you're going to get those weird things where a guy will forfeit a match just to get a more favorable matchup in the consolation bracket.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you'll see too much of that going on.
But it does happen.
With 4 guys advancing. But it's certainly possible.
Yeah, it's happened in the past, particularly in the really loaded sectionals we've had in the past. And again, there's nothing we can do about that either, just because of the way the assignments go.
We'll just have to see what happens. But obviously, it's going to affect it will where you finish is going to affect your seating at state. So
exactly.
you definitely want to do the best you physically can, and not and hopefully none of the stuff you mentioned is going to take place. I certainly hope not.
Well, we hope not, but every year it does happen.
It does,
unfortunately. Again, it's the system we have, which What can you say?
So,
all right. So again, we will not be on next week, but we will be on the week after the regionals to go ahead and we'll recap the regionals. And of course, we'll do a sectional preview. Again, as always, if you're watching this, by all means, and I know a lot of people don't catch us live, you're going to watch it afterwards, but please click a thumbs up on the, on the like video button. And if you have anything to send, Rob, go ahead. Again, your email.
Sherrill3062 at gmail.com. That's Sherrill3062 at gmail.com.
And if you have anything you want, you can add in the comic sections. And for those of you, of course, I'm on Illinois Mapmen as well. You can contact me, PM, anything you want to add, anything you want to ask, any suggestions, wide open to include criticism. And we'll take it from there. So again, I'm getting ready to say good night with Rob and I here, and hope you enjoyed this podcast. Like I said, we'll be back after regionals, and we'll see you then.